This is CBC Vancouver News.
Palestinians and Israeli civilians are equal, and both must be protected.
In the Middle East, aid gets through to Palestinians, and now Canada says its own analysis reveals Israel was not behind the airstrike that leveled a hospital in Gaza. Plus,
they are interested, I think, in having their story told because their story isn't well known.
we take you to Ladner, where a special walk paves the way for sharing Indigenous history at the risk of being forgotten. And
we have hundreds of 100 volunteers or so from the construction industry.
I can confidently say that there's probably 60 to 80 of my closest friends and acquaintances here.
more than a quarter century of raising money and hope in the heart of Vancouver. Good evening, I'm Tanya Fletcher. Thanks for joining us tonight. We begin with new developments in the Middle East. Analysis now by the Canadian Forces Intelligence Command indicates Israel did not strike the Gaza hospital last week. That's believed to have killed nearly 500 people. The Department of National Defence and the Canadian Armed Forces say the strike was more likely caused by an errant rocket fired from within Gaza. Meanwhile, in Israel, 20 trucks carrying humanitarian aid have now crossed into Gaza. The CBC's Susan Ormiston is in Jerusalem with our top story tonight.
It was a somber day here in Israel, marking 2 weeks to the day since Hamas launched its brutal attack here, plunging the Middle East into a crisis. Today, a little bit of relief for those surviving day to day in Gaza. There was an opening on the border between Egypt and Gaza for just a few hours to allow aid in. Trucks waiting for days at the Rafah crossing rolled through, carrying food, medicine, and coffins. 20 truckloads in total, a drop in the ocean, say aid agencies. But on the Gaza side, the first sign of desperately needed humanitarian aid, the UN wants the convoy of trucks to grow and move every day, but there are still large diplomatic roadblocks, and it's expected that Sunday that border will stay closed again. Also, no openings for Gazans who have foreign passports and are trying to get out of Gaza. The U.S. alerted some of them that they might be able to get through that border, but that opportunity never came, and there was no direction at all for Canadians trapped and waiting desperately to get out. Meanwhile, there were low expectations for real progress in Cairo at a peace conference hosted by the Egyptian president. He warned the Palestinian cause will not be solved at the expense of Egypt. Arab leaders denounced Israel's siege of Gaza, but neither the leaders of Israel nor the U.S. were there to hear it. Canada's foreign minister announced another $50 million in aid for Gaza.
At all times, all parties in conflict must respect international humanitarian law. Palestinians and Israeli civilians are equal, and both must be protected.
And it was another day of growing protests across the Middle East, echoing outside the region as well. Israel has massed tanks and troops on the border with Gaza, but there's no indication of when a ground incursion may start. However, tonight, an Israeli spokesperson said they are going to increase attacks on Gaza starting tonight to minimize the threats, the dangers to Israeli troops in the next phase of this war. Susan Ormiston, CBC News, Jerusalem.
Well, back here in our country, protests echoed across Canada today around the contentious gender identity and schools debate. Here in Metro Vancouver, a drag queen story time was postponed at the Coquitlam Public Library. That was because of security concerns after staff learned of a protest against the event. Ayla Musa has more from one of these similar rallies in Toronto today.
Protests like the one behind me here at the Ontario Legislature erupted last month. They're organized by people who are against the teaching of sexual orientation and gender identity curriculum in schools. I actually spoke to a protester here earlier who said these types of topics shouldn't be left to teachers. They should be left to parents to discuss with their children if they choose.
In the schools, they need to stick to ABCs and the basic curriculum. They should not be speaking about things that are family issues.
These demonstrations come after Saskatchewan and New Brunswick recently adopted new gender and pronoun policies for schools. The two provinces now require young people to get parental consent before teachers can use their preferred names and pronouns. But some LGBTQ advocates say these new policies put kids who are members of the LGBTQ community at risk. They say they are bullied and they face higher rates of suicide.
You can't have kids committing suicide or in the age of AIDS not being aware of sexual health practices. It's just really basic. So that's why it's important that we're here and to sort of counter this sort of hate.
Ontario's Ministry of Education released a statement saying that they support LGBTQ students and that there will be no changes made to their health and physical education curriculum at this time. Idil Musa, CBC News, Toronto.
Well, guests at a downtown Vancouver hotel will have to find somewhere else to stay thanks to a fire in the building. Flames sparked up in the Barclay Hotel in the West End yesterday evening. Crews had to call in extra help, but the fire was ultimately contained to just 2 suites. Traffic, though, was tied up in the area for hours as dozens of crews responded. That hotel has since been closed. It's unclear how many people were displaced, but no one was hurt. Well, the doors of a newly renovated long-term care facility opened today in Burnaby.
It's going to help ensure that more people in Metro Vancouver get access, for example, to single occupancy rooms, which helps provide a better care environment. It offers private rooms, private washrooms, improved dining rooms, more space for social activities.
The new Vista facility has more than 200 beds and is focused on more privacy for residents. Dozens of residents have already moved to the remodeled complex from other facilities. The province says it has offered jobs to all workers who were at previous facilities where the residents were staying. Well, years after other BC cities started doing it, Vancouver is now allowing grocery stores to stock their shelves with wine.
We're a city that's very proud of its wine and culinary culture. And of course, wine is one of our most successful Indigenous industries. So why not celebrate it by making it available?
In 2017, when municipalities were given the green light to bring in their own policies, Vancouver opted for the store within a store option only. Well, now grocery stores will need to be at least 10,000 square feet, plus have a provincial wine and local business license in order to stock booze directly on shelves. A first-of-its-kind walking tour wound its way through Ladner today. The idea was to share the Indigenous history that's attached to the land. Our reporter Sorab Sandhu tagged along.
Ik wan shan quis katatan is the theme for this walk.
Ek wan shan quis katatan in Hokaminam means to walk with love, honor, and respect for friends, family, and the shoreline.
This group is on a community-guided walk along the dike with the help of an online video. It tells the story of Ulitsum, also known as Brunswick Point, from the perspectives of Indigenous peoples, scientists, and artists.
I think that if we tell deeper stories about the places that we love, that they will have a better chance of being protected.
The area is well known for the bird sanctuary and the biodiverse habitat it's home to.
This is a very unique part of the estuary that we're on the Pacific, what do they call it? The Pacific Northwest Flyway for all the migratory birds. So they stop here and feed here on the abundance as well.
But some are concerned for the future of this place.
That this site is really under threat because of the Roberts Bank Terminal 2 expansion that has been approved.
The first of its kind walk was curated by Kim Trainer and Amy Huestis, an artist herself, alongside the Richmond Art Gallery.
To put together an exhibition, to put together the books that Amy's produced, to do programming with children, really spreads the word about these places and their importance culturally.
For those within the Hulitsum First Nation, it's a chance to reconnect with their roots.
This happened to be where our ancestors was their fishing village. They would come here on the seasonal cycle for salmon, oolakins, sturgeon, the bird life. the abundance that was offered here.
And for others, it's a chance to learn what they missed in the past.
The Waleetzum community are a collection of people who are status Indians under the Indian Act, but their community isn't acknowledged as such directly. The story of other First Nations in the area is well known, but not of these non-recognized communities.
Saurabh Sandhu, CBC News, Ladner.
Well, the Metro Vancouver Black Business Expo was held in Surrey today. Entrepreneurs of Black-owned businesses were able to connect with the community by showcasing their products. Government reps were also there to talk about business loan opportunities.
Yeah, about funding for Black business owners. Most people think we are talking about giving us some free money. We don't want free money. We want funds that can help promote our business to expand. We are very creative, right? So that's the reason why we need funding for expansion.
The Surrey Board of Trade co-hosted the event, helping connect business owners with mentors. Well, Vancouver's core will soon get a little bit brighter, all to raise money for critical medical care. The annual St. Paul's Lights of Hope fundraising campaign has kicked off for its 26th year. The thousands of twinkling lights are put up every year by hundreds of volunteers. We spoke with one of them who's been helping out for over 2 decades.
This is how I start my Christmas season. This is what puts me in the mood for Christmas.
What's happening behind us on Burrard Street at St. Paul's Hospital is incredible. It's a massive undertaking. It's the kickoff to the holiday season. We have hundreds of 100 volunteers or so from the construction industry.
I can confidently say that there's probably 60 to 80 of my closest friends and acquaintances here. They're the most amazing people I've had the opportunity to work with.
These are volunteers, and they come year after year because they have a personal connection to what is happening at the hospital.
Brings in a lot of donations for the hospital. It allows the hospital to get the professionals and the equipment that they so desperately need. I'd like to be able to get back. It's something that I've always done.
Coming up, why abandoned boats are threatening BC's coastline. We'll have that story next. Stay with us. Welcome back. Most of them are vessels that have sailed their last voyage, and there are hundreds of them. Derelict, wrecked, and abandoned boats litter BC's coast all the way from Vancouver Island into the Fraser River. The CBC's Lindsay Duncombe has more now on the problem plaguing our waters and the risks they pose.
Slowly, carefully, the cowboy is hoisted off this Vancouver Island beach. One less abandoned boat in a province full of them.
That's it, the final voyage for that boat has been completed. Yeah.
The cowboy's last ride.
Finding, dismantling, recycling, and disposing of deserted vessels is dangerous technical work. That's fiberglass left in or near the ocean. It would pollute the water and the fish that live in it. The goal here, recycle anything salvageable, send the rest to the landfill.
How big of a problem is this?
It's big everywhere. Like, we've done surveys around the whole island, and everywhere we went, there was derelict vessels. It's a huge problem.
Joshua Charlson is with BC's Coastal Restoration Society. He works with communities and First Nations on Vancouver Island. This summer and fall, the society will dispose of about 30 abandoned boats, funded by grants from provincial and federal governments.
Given what you know about how many derelict boats are out there, how many summers could you keep doing this?
I want to say we can hopefully get it done in my generation because I have 3 young kids, but it's going to take education, it's going to take policy change, it's going to take a willingness for people to change their habits of abandoning boats on shoreline in the first place.
Right, welcome aboard.
The team looks for boats on shore and underwater.
So you see like the nose of the boat?
Yeah.
So that's like
Sonar helps them detect abandoned boats below the surface.
Oh yeah, you can see it there.
What do you think of when you see a boat like that sunk?
It's one of those things that it's really sad to see because you know all the leaching that's coming from the fiberglass and the metals and everything like that.
One of the big problems with abandoned boats is simply figuring out who owns them. You know, they might have a registration number on them, but the system isn't handled the way vehicle registrations are. In fact, the last person to officially own this boat may have sold it decades ago.
Whatever a man's aspirations, large or small, sail or power, he can realize his dreams off the coast of British Columbia.
The introduction of fiberglass in the 1950s set off a Canadian boating boom. Now those boats are reaching the end of their lives. Maintaining them, expensive. It's easier to ditch them than to fix them. Same goes for commercial boats.
When I grew up, it was nothing for me to see like an old commercial fisherman just go put his boat on the beach and then just leave it.
Disposing of an abandoned boat is expensive. Some can cost tens of thousands of dollars. Commercial ships cost millions. And no one is really counting all the boats just left behind. The Canadian Coast Guard's inventory lists 1,500 boats across the country.
How much of this exists across the province, do you think?
But Wesley and John Rowe, the father-son team behind BC's Dead Boats Disposal Society, figure there's far more than that. Thousands more in BC alone.
We pulled out about 250 boats in the last 5 years sort of thing, and we'll pull out a bunch more before we're done.
Then we have the picture there.
Oh, wow, yeah. That's an actual boat.
Yep.
They use drones and underwater cameras to find them here on the banks of the Alouette River near Vancouver.
How many boats would you say is in this area or are in this area that needs to be cleaned up?
About 9 to 12.
Yeah.
Yeah. It saddens me in a lot of ways because our governments, our communities, we could be doing better and doing something about them.
But that's where it gets complicated. When it comes to what happens on water, 3 levels of government are involved. And Rowe says officials have a tendency to pass the buck.
It's not municipal government, it's the federal government. It's not the federal government, it's the provincial government. It's
it is
sun god, I don't know.
Ring around the rosy.
The society has had success. It recently convinced Transport Canada to clean up this section of the river.
It sounds to me like you're a bit of a thorn in the side of some of these officials, John.
A real bad one.
Some cleanups are happening. The Coast Guard dismantled and removed this rusty fishing vessel moored on the Fraser River for 6 years. It cost more than $3 million.
Canada's Wrecked, Abandoned, or Hazardous Vessels Act is here to help.
And the laws have changed. In 2019, the federal government made it illegal to abandon a boat, punishable with fines up to $50,000. Although since the law passed, only 1 fine has been issued.
It's almost unsolvable, the way that we're set up at the moment. And where should we start?
Let's start by getting on the boat.
Yeah, okay.
One hand for the boat at all times, please.
Yeah.
Okay.
Michael Simmons is with the Saanich Inlet Protection Society. For 10 years, he's been working on the problem of abandoned boats, moored here in Brentwood Bay near Victoria.
How much progress have you made?
We've had 1 boat removed from here that we under the Wrecked, Abandoned, and Hazardous Vessels Act. It took, I think, 3 years when we first asked for it to be attended to before it was actually removed. That was removed in February this year.
So you have had 1 boat removed in more than a decade of trying to work with this problem. Is that success?
Well, it's better than nothing. What can I say? I shouldn't laugh. I mean, it's serious. It's awful, actually. This is the English Rose. the blue boat here.
I think the bloom is off the English road.
You're right. Yeah.
So what about Piccadilly?
Well, it's been here a very long time. It's been in sad shape for a long time, even though it's a really nice boat originally.
Yeah. Boats may look abandoned, but in order to qualify for removal under the law, there has to be proof no one has visited the vessel for 2 years.
And how would you know? Like, who's checking?
It's impossible to prove.
Yeah.
It's impossible.
So what beach is this?
Shell Beach.
Shell Beach.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
There's the Staminas Reservation.
Yeah.
Back near Ladysmith, another beach, another boat.
So what do we know about this boat?
There'll be leg oil in there for sure. There might be some residual gas.
Is that the last one then? These two are out.
He says there's enough work to build an entire boat disposal industry.
We have so much work ahead of us that it's going to be decades of work just to deal with what we've identified so far.
Disposal takes time and effort. It will be tugged to a different location where it will be torn apart and disposed of. One problem solved, with so many more to go. Lindsay Duncombe, CBC News, near Ladysmith, British Columbia.
You are looking at a live shot north towards the port of Vancouver. Well, we have dried out in parts of BC this weekend, but get ready for another round of rain. I'll time out your 5-day forecast coming up next.
Hi, I'm Amy Bell, and here's what's in your CBC Vancouver inbox. Celebrate the achievements and resilience of women in the workforce with CBC's Michelle Elliott on November 21st at the annual Dress for Success Luncheon. Get tickets and learn more at successluncheon.ca. And stay on top of what's happening where you live with our weekly newsletter. Subscribe today for special programming series, events, and contests at cbc.ca/Vancouver Inbox.
And taking a look at the full forecast, starting with the current temperatures, considering our overnight low average is supposed to be 6 degrees in Vancouver. We are very warm for this time of year, but it is going to cool off, especially the further north you get. -1 right now in Fort St. John, -2 in Prince George. And we're going to see some precipitation as well, possibly come down in the form of snow. You can see that band of precipitation moving west to east, especially in the south. As it moves across the Okanagan, likely just rain, but you see those pink parts? That's a mix of snow and rain. So do watch out if you're driving on any of the mountain passes. Here's where we're at for temperatures. Again, it's kind of those change of seasons where it depends where you are, what you're going to get. There is a chance of snow in the forecast still for tomorrow for Fort St. John. Otherwise, to the southeast in the Kootenays, 12 degrees, but lots of rain on the way for Cranbrook and the southern interior as well. Here's the 5-day forecast for Metro Vancouver. We had a dry weekend, but the rain is set to return. Still double-digit temperatures, but we will have to get used to that rain once again. And that is your late news for this Saturday, October 21st. For news anytime, anywhere, download the free CBC News app. You can always find us online as well at cbc.ca/BC. Your next local news is on CBC Radio 1 starting tomorrow morning at 6 o'clock. Thank you so much for joining us. Have a good night.